Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, what we challenge, and if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, in a rather surprising development on Friday, our good friend Sergeant Scholz, the German Chancellor, put in a call to the Kremlin. And this was quite a remarkable event because he hasn't spoken to Putin for 2 years. December 2022 was the last time they had spoken. The call was initiated by him, and therefore, it did generate some comment and some anxiety, notably from Zelenskyy, but interestingly enough, also from the G7 ministers who issued a statement. Well, of course, they didn't criticize Sergeant Scholz,
But
but
it was a
nonetheless,
rebuke.
but
It was a rebuke.
it was a rebuke. I mean, they don't just suddenly issue a statement. And so I want to just look at some of the coverage of this. And here, first of all, is the tweet that was sent out by Sergeant Scholz. He sent one out in German, and this is the English translation. So I spoke to President Putin on the phone and called on him to end the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine and to withdraw his troops. Russia must show willingness to negotiate with Ukraine with the aim of achieving a just and lasting peace. Now, the problem with that is, well, this is just boilerplate. You mean after 2 years, you suddenly initiated a call just to mouth cliches. I mean, what was that? What's the point of that? But we have to keep in mind, Sergeant Scholz has an election coming up. His government has fallen, and there's likely to be an election in February, which means that the preparations for the elections are already underway because we're coming up to the Christmas season, and then the election will be.
And by the time there's the elections in Germany, there will be a new administration in Washington.
Exactly. So here we have the Tagesschau, the German coverage. So Scholz speaks to Putin on the phone for the first time in 2 years. And it says, after almost 2 years of radio silence, Chancellor Scholz has spoken to Russian President Putin. Scholz called on Putin to end the war of aggression and against Ukraine, to withdraw his troop. And then it says, and then again, the call lasted an hour, which is quite a lengthy conversation. I don't know what language they speak. I mean, Putin speaks very good German, but I don't know whether he would speak in German to Scholz. You don't think he would?
No, no.
I don't think so either, because I think he spoke in German with Merkel, but he had a much warmer relationship with Merkel. So,
well, the protocol is, I mean, Lavrov's people told me this. Lavrov speaks very good English, obviously, yeah. And I've been to conferences and pressers and stuff like that, and he's supposed to speak Russian. But at Valdai a few years ago, he started speaking English, and because that's the language of Valdai, because there's so many different foreigners from different countries, and Lavrov said it's okay this time, okay? Right. I mean, because it was much more kind of personal. This is kind of quasi off the record. I think that when Putin talked to Merkel, it was kind of quasi off the record too, because they had some kind of a warm relation, at least in the beginning.
In the beginning, right? Yeah.
But I don't. Sergeant Scholz, is there anyone that has ever loved you outside your mother? Okay, so it wasn't a warm conversation.
No, I agree. I also don't think so. But Lavrov's English is very good. I mean, and you remember when he made that joke to Christian Amanpour, there are a lot of pussies in this election. Right. I mean, he even understands the sort of English vulgarities. So then he said
he's got a wicked wit.
Yeah.
And it sometimes can be hard. Okay, I've been told this. Okay.
Right.
He's a hard man. Okay. I mean, to be Russian foreign minister for so many years, you got to have the right stuff.
Yep. Government sources said that the chancellor had particularly condemned the Russian airstrikes against civilian infrastructure in Ukraine. He also stressed that the deployment of North Korean soldiers to Russia for combat missions against Ukraine would lead to a serious escalation and expansion of the conflict. And then Scholz declared that none of Russia's war aims had been achieved, according to government sources. In the phone call, the chancellor urged Russia to be willing to enter into serious negotiations with Ukraine with the aim of achieving a just and lasting peace. He stressed Germany's unwavering determination to support Ukraine in its defensive struggle for as long as necessary, whatever that means. Scholz and Putin agreed to continue to stay in touch.
So why did he make the call, George?
Well, that's the point. Now, this is all of this is just standard NATO boilerplate. Why would you go and talk to Putin and regale him with this? I mean, he doesn't need to hear this. And they talked for an hour, which is that's quite a lengthy conversation.
Well, I mean, this has everything to do with Trump, I think, because I think what Ukraine is certainly worried about, as it should be, because it is completely dependent on NATO land, particularly the United States and Germany. Germany's number two, is that decisions are going to be made over its head, over Ukraine.
Right.
And George, by extension, over Scholz's head. Too.
I think that's what he's concerned about.
That's what he's worried about.
That's right, exactly. That somehow these decisions and rightly, because
when you're groveling on all fours, I mean, why should you get any respect?
Right. That's right. So that's and this is the Financial Times story. German leader Scholz speaks to Vladimir Putin, and here we have the focus is on Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is very unhappy. He said, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy said on Friday that Olaf's call, in my opinion, is a Pandora's box. It's always very interesting, a Pandora's box, because I don't quite know the relevance of Pandora's box here. But I mean, I don't know. Nobody really knows exactly what Pandora's box means. I mean, it's basically you kept everything locked in this box, and the moment you open the box, then all the spirits, all the evil spirits, I think, dissipated. And I think there was something good that was left behind. I think that's the story of the sort of Pandora's box. So that maybe you don't lose everything. Maybe there's some hope that's left behind inside the box.
Yeah, well, maybe all the evil surrounding the Zelenskyy regime will be released.
Okay. Yes, that's right. Yes. It says, because resuming contacts with Western leaders was exactly what Putin has wanted for a long time. So why, how does he know this? I mean, I haven't seen much movement that Putin wants any contact with Western leaders. He never even goes to any of these conferences to meet with Western leaders. So.
And it would be pointless because you would get boilerplate.
Yes. Yeah.
And of course, Financial Times has to. It wasn't apparently part of the quote. Okay.
Right.
Again, parsing words is very important. That's what George and I do here.
That's exactly
what Putin has wanted for a long time. Ending Russia's isolation. That's the Financial Times editorial.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Always good when they say Russia's isolation. I mean, is that,
I don't know. It's pretty crowded in Kazan last month.
Exactly. Zelenskyy cast doubt on what any negotiations with Putin could achieve, given the Russian leader's record of engaging in talks that, quote, lead to nothing, as he has been doing for decades. This allowed Russia to change nothing in its policy, to do nothing substantial, and ultimately it led to this war.
But apparently in Istanbul, there was was very much different. There was a lot of give and take. And George and I have chronicled here repeatedly is that what Russia was willing to give up at Istanbul, I think, would have been a strategic defeat.
I absolutely would have been. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. But so you can't say this has been going on for decades.
No, exactly. And in fact, what Russia gave up on Minsk was was not at all to Russia's advantage, particularly as Russia had all the cards in its hands in 2014, 2015. Ukraine was very weak then. So Russia could have really dictated the terms. It didn't. And then Scholz spokesperson Stefan Hebestreit said that the German leader, quote, condemned the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine and called on President Putin to end it and withdraw his troops. He added that the Chancellor also stressed Germany's steadfast determination to support Ukraine in its fight against Russian aggression as long as it is necessary. And then Scholz has in recent months pushed for another Ukraine peace conference, which ideally Russia would attend. This would follow the conference held in Switzerland last summer, at which Russia was not present. The German leader's last physical meeting with Putin was in Moscow just a few days before he unleashed his full-scale invasion of Ukraine. That was a disastrous meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, that was when he said when Putin talked about genocide, and he said something like, when he speaks about genocide, I laugh. That's the worst thing. A German chancellor, he's in the Kremlin, and he said, when I hear the word genocide, I laugh. It was a meeting that didn't go well.
Well, it also it shows that, okay, first of all, everybody knows the end is near. Now, what near means, George and I are not going to be like other pontificating about predictions, okay? But I think it's fair to assume, given what we've experienced and know, is that the jig is up, and there's going to be winding this down one way or another. Scholz wants to be part of that one way or another, and maybe better sooner than better later, because this is going to be his whole legacy.
Right.
His whole legacy is going to be how he destroyed Germany for Ukraine. That's what his entire chancellorship and his entire traffic light coalition is going to be remembered for. The breakdown of the German economy, a breakdown of energy security, bankruptcies, companies going abroad, no one investing in Germany. I mean, and this all happened under your watch.
Under your watch. But it seems also strange, because I don't quite understand Scholz's way back for this. I mean, he's going to do very badly.
There ain't one. There ain't one, George. That's
right.
He's
I mean,
done. He's done.
He's done. There's going to be an election. One has to assume the Social Democrats will do very poorly. Christian Democrats will come in first. Maybe then the Alternative for Deutschland will come in second. But the Christian Democrats won't have enough support by themselves to form a government, so they will probably turn to Social Democrats. Probably not with Scholz. I don't think Scholz will, I think he's gone. He's not going to be the leader of the Social Democrat Party. But then again, it's hard to see what exactly is he hoping for. Maybe it is some kind of a legacy. He's trying to to be a peacemaker in his last days.
If you can count your time in power in now days, and you've presided over all of this, he called for legacy reasons,
right?
But at the very end, he tried his best. I don't really care about when people try. I care about results. Okay,
yeah.
He's not going to get anything because it's his own damn fault. Okay, no, he just completely disarmed himself, disarmed Germany, and went into some Stockholm syndrome with NATO landed the United States. That's your legacy, Sergeant.
That's it. But that's really the problem, because when he puts in a call to Putin knows that he's a lame duck. He's done. He's only got a few days left in office, so there's not much incentive for Putin to take seriously. I mean, it seems like he took this call out of politeness, but ultimately, he knows I'm not going to be dealing with Scholz for much longer. So there's, again, it's a sort of fairly pointless endeavor. And said Berlin said Scholz telephoned Zelenskyy before Friday's call and would do so again after it. So here Berlin says he notified Zelenskyy beforehand, telephones before Friday's call, and would do so again after it. Well, that's not clear whether he told Zelenskyy he was going to call. He said he spoke to Zelenskyy, but we don't know whether Zelenskyy knew he was going to call Putin. But anyway,
that's why we have George here. That's why we have George here, because yes, he didn't. He might have omitted a very important fact.
Exactly. So it's just isn't clear from that way of the way it's described that whether he told Zelenskyy he was going to do this. German officials said that in his conversation with Putin, Scholz condemned in particular the Russian air attacks on civilian infrastructure in Ukraine, saying the war had brought death, suffering, and destruction to Ukraine for almost 1,000 days. So they seem to be elaborating on all the things that Scholz supposedly said, which he didn't put in his tweets. They said he had made clear that
isn't he just counting the ways that you see? I was right on this. I was right on this. Yeah, you were right, maybe on all of it, but it ended up being a total catastrophe
Right.
for you.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's clear that it's not popular in Germany. This war is not popular in Germany. And one could have easily predicted that it would not be popular in Germany. Yeah, in the media, maybe, the Spiegel and all the rest, but among the German public, this is really not a popular war. They said that he also made clear the deployment of North Korean soldiers on combat missions in Russia represented a serious escalation, expansion of the conflict.
I
Then the
don't,
official said
I don't
Scholz.
know. George, a sovereign country has asked another sovereign country
Right,
in which it has security arrangements with,
right,
and they want to have exercises on your country.
right. That's right.
So, I mean, what is the international uproar here?
I don't know. No, no,
I'm
yeah,
completely
no,
mystified.
none at all. No, uh,
Okay,
yeah,
combat missions in Russia.
in Russia, and again,
So NATO land has the audacity again to say what you can do inside your own country.
right. And it's right. That's a very important point you just made, because it is all the talk is that North Koreans are being used in the fight in Kursk. So it's inside Russia. So there's no talk of North Koreans being used outside of Russian borders. Yeah, I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, this is also all of the money and everything and training and then the ammunition and weapons and everything that you poured into Ukraine. Not to mention the illegal seizure of Russian assets, all the things that you have done, and here you're worrying about what North Koreans are doing inside of Russia. The official said Scholz had stressed the long-term nature of German support for Ukraine and had told Putin that he can't count on time being on his side. But time isn't on Scholz's side. That we can but anyway, so this is Zelenskyy. So Zelenskyy, made this speech or address to the people. There will be no Minsk III. I don't want to do an imitation of him. Other people do imitations of him. There will be no Minsk. What we need is real peace. And then here, this is where
Well, then so the Minsk process wasn't real. So there's an admission from
right,
the former or illegal
right,
leader of Ukraine. This is an admission that it was a fraud.
right,
I mean, at least that's what the title
right.
connotes.
Yeah. So he says here that regarding one of today's news stories, Chancellor Scholz told me that he's going to call Putin. Okay, so he did get an advance notice. Olaf's call, in my opinion, is Olaf. It's actually very funny the way all these leaders all go in for this ridiculous first name things, like our friend Stoltenberg, who unfortunately we don't have Stoltenberg to kick around anymore, but Stoltenberg would always go in for this first name thing. Every time there was some leader would come in, like Blinken, it was always Tony, and Olaf is a Pandora's box. Now there may be other conversations, other calls, just a lot of words. And this is exactly what Putin has wanted for a long time. It is crucial for him to weaken his isolation, Russia's isolation, and to engage in negotiations, ordinary negotiations that will lead to nothing. So,
This is like a girls in high school. Oh, you talked to her. I thought we were not supposed to talk
that's
to her.
exactly, yes. You're exactly. You're taking him out of, he's supposed to be in Coventry, not supposed to be talking to him.
So childish.
And yeah, that will lead to nothing. And he has been doing for decades. This allowed Russia to change nothing in its policy. But again, as you pointed out earlier, where you had the talks in Istanbul. I mean, that was serious business. I mean, you had that very, very thick agreement. I can't remember how many pages it was. It was a very, very detailed agreement that you had initialed. So those were serious talks. So, they're nothing substantial. This allowed Russia to change nothing in its policy and to do nothing substantial, and ultimately it led to this war. We understand all these challenges now. We know how to act, and we want to warn everyone There will be no Minsk III. What we need is real peace. And then, but as we pointed out, Minsk I and Minsk II were extremely advantageous to Ukraine. And it's hard to see how Ukraine can get another Minsk III. I mean, it's like that those deals that you got in 2014, 2015, it's hard to see how they can be restored. Anything similar to Minsk 1 and 2 can be now given to Ukraine.
What we need is real peace. I agree with him on that. Okay. So when the next sentence should be, as the former or semi-legal, quasi-legal,
Right.
maybe nobody leader of Ukraine renounce any ambitions to joining NATO. Then this conversation can start.
Right. That's right. And now this is the Kremlin readout, and it's quite interesting what the Kremlin says here. So it says, at the initiative of the German side, the first telephone conversation, blah blah, a detailed and frank exchange of opinions on the situation in Ukraine was held. Vladimir Putin recalled the current crisis was a direct result of NATO's long-standing aggressive policy aimed at creating an anti-Russian foothold on Ukrainian territory while ignoring our country's security interests and trampling on the rights of Russian-speaking residents. And then, as for the prospects for a political and diplomatic settlement of the conflict, the Russian president noted that the Russian side has never refused and remains open to resuming negotiations that were interrupted by the Kiev regime. Russia's proposals are well known and were outlined, in particular, in the June speech at the Foreign Ministry. We covered that, and when he spelled out those conditions. Possible agreements should take into account the interests of the Russian Federation in the security sphere, proceed from new territorial realities, and most importantly, eliminate the root causes of the conflict. So the root causes of the conflict. And then it says the state of affairs in Russian-German relations was also touched upon. Vladimir Putin noted their unprecedented degradation in all areas as a consequence of the unfriendly course of the German authorities. It was emphasized that Russia has always strictly fulfilled its treaty and contractual obligations in the energy sector and is ready for mutually beneficial cooperation if there is interest in this from the German side. Now, he's done this before. He's offered, because he said, all these pipelines have been destroyed, but there is still one pipeline, the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, that hasn't been destroyed and can still transport gas to Germany if Germany is ready to take it. So, I mean, he said this, I think, in his interview with Tucker Carlson. So this is something he's emphasized. But he said this obviously to Scholz. Hey, you've got economic problems, but if you want, we can turn on the taps, and you're going to start getting Russian natural gas again.
Also, just as a sidebar, when Putin came to power on New Year's Eve, 2000, he had great hopes for Russia-German relations. That was really the apple of his eye. I mean, he knows German, he knows Germans, he knows their culture, their history, and I can remember. Maybe not everyone will appreciate this, but he kind of gushed over Angela Merkel at one point. Okay,
he did.
Because he thought that this is a way for European Russia relations to be on. She was the point person, and he was so terribly disappointed. And I think that when he leaves power, that'll be one of his greatest regrets, that German-Russia relations never got on the track that he really wanted.
No, that's exactly right. Now, in the case of Angela Merkel, it was particularly painful for him because she came from the east of Germany, and she spoke fluent Russian. So she spoke fluent Russian, he spoke fluent German. So he thought that there'd be a kind of a personal rapport between them. And that didn't materialize, but he kept with it. He kept cultivating Merkel, and particularly Minsk. I mean, he still, when Merkel called and said, well, I think Yanukovych really shouldn't use any force against the Maidan people. Putin echoed her. Putin said, yeah, I'm with Merkel. Yeah, Yanukovych shouldn't use force. I mean, that is disastrous. Yanukovych should have used force to end the Maidan. But nonetheless, he was still absolutely besotted with the idea of maintaining good relations with Merkel's Germany. And yeah, I mean,
Well,
yeah.
go ahead.
Yeah,
Keep
no,
going.
and of course, as you said, the idea behind this economic development program of Putin in 2000 was German industrial know-how, German investment, coupled with Russia's natural resources, and that was the way Russia would actually become an economic superpower, which is obviously what Putin has been
And on
seeking.
friendly terms with Europe.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is something the Americans dreaded.
yeah,
They dreaded it during the Cold War. They dreaded it during the unipolar moment, and they
yeah,
dread it to this day. Okay,
yeah,
that's why they blew up the pipeline.
yeah. Exactly,
Just
exactly.
as a sidebar, everybody, when the meeting was Poroshenko at the time, the Minsk meeting, Putin entertained everyone with Crimean wine.
I didn't know that. Is that good? Is Crimean wine good?
I can't say one way or another. I'm not really a wine drinker.
And so our friend Timothy Garton Ash sent out this tweet. Timothy Garton Ash.
Oh, this is supposed to be an expert opinion, everyone.
Exactly, expert.
Hey, George, can you give me a drum roll, please? Okay, go ahead.
Expert, exactly. Expert Timothy Garton Ash. And he says, given the long history of Germany making deals with Russia over the heads of East Europeans.
Oh, wow, what a historical reference he's making.
Historical record. So obviously he's going back.
Scholz.
Exactly.
Okay.
So he's going back to the Molotov-Ribbentrop era. Given the long history of Germany making deals with Russia over the heads of East Europeans, it's shocking that Bundeskanzler did this clearly against the wishes of Zelenskyy. Why would the Bundeskanzler be preoccupied with the wishes of Zelenskyy? I mean, he's the Chancellor of Germany. He has to concern himself with what's in the interest of Germany. Why would his top priority be whether Zelenskyy of Ukraine approves or disapproves of what he did?
Yeah, and you know what? The only person at this point doesn't have much gravitas that can mold Scholz's legacy is himself, and he's not going to let Zelenskyy be that person. It's certainly not going to let Timothy Garton Ash be that person.
Right. Yeah, no, that's it. And it says, and at least partly for party political election campaign reasons. Now, there's another aspect to it, which is, according to US intelligence and according to German intelligence, it was Ukrainians who blew up the pipeline. Now, if they blew up the pipeline, wouldn't you expect a German chancellor to be a little ticked off with Ukrainians? Hey, they kind of destroyed our energy infrastructure. They destroyed our gas pipelines. After all we've done for them, after all the money we poured into them, after giving them everything, they destroyed our pipelines. But Garton Ash, he doesn't care about. Now, I don't actually believe that story, but that's the official story that the Germans are going with, that it was the Ukrainians who blew it up. That's what the Americans are claiming. So why should he have warm relations with Ukraine? Why should he be positively disposed towards Ukraine?
Yeah, well, why are messages sent out like this on Twitter? Because this is part of the NATO payroll.
Yep.
This is what this is the Scholz talks to Putin. Oh, the payroll red flag goes up. Who's going to be out there first? Okay, to get your check. Okay.
Right. That's right. And he's always he does this all the time. He sort of brings up kind of World War II. I mean he's always going on at Scholz, but for Scholz's timidity. When Scholz is not sending Taurus missiles to Ukraine, though this Germany is going back to its era of World War II, when he was destroying Ukraine. Doesn't Germany have some obligation towards Ukraine after what he did to Ukraine in World War II? So send more arms as a way of atoning for your guilt for World War II. Not guilt towards Russia, but guilt towards Ukraine. That's what Garth Nash does. His supposed historical expertise, which is always taking these weird readings of World War II.
Well, I also, again, kind of weird, unprofessional, even kind of juvenile um, explanations of current events. Kursk.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's where the Nazi war machine was broken. It never went on the offensive again, and so
Right.
Ukraine should try it now.
Right.
They should try exactly what the Germans did.
Right.
This is where you draw your line in the sand. This is going to be make or break. Well, it was going to be break.
Right.
So, you know,
Yeah.
it's just kind of infantile
Yeah.
analogies being made. They don't
It,
work.
it is infantile, but there's always something really disgusting. I mean that's obvious, but it's always disgusting about these people who are always banging their fist on the table, demanding that somebody else do. Send this, send that, send that. Before that, it was why isn't Germany signing off on these Leopard tanks? You got to send the Leopard tanks. Garnash, lives in Oxford. He's far away from the action. I mean, having dinner at high table in Oxford. He's okay. No one's gonna hurt him. But he's thundering about the pusillanimity of the Germans for their reluctance to expand this war.
Yeah, but this is also kind of a old style neo-colonial. The Germans. You were beat twice. Okay, so you've got to listen to us.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
yes,
It's very imperial thinking.
yes.
And if you look at Timothy Garton Ash's writing, it's very highbrow. He's always highbrowing it.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah, a highbrow tone, but very distinctly middlebrow intellectually. I mean, he's a very superficial writer. I mean, he really doesn't get much more sophisticated than, hey, communism, fascism, that's totalitarianism on one side, liberal democracy on the other side. These are the bad guys, these are the good guys, and we have to be on the side of liberal democracy. It's not any more sophisticated than that.
That's why he sold a lot of books.
Yeah. And has been bankrolled. He gets all sorts of prizes and fellowships here and there. Very, very lucrative career. And then this is I know you were waiting for this. Everyone's waiting for this. The G7 leaders' statement in support of Ukraine. So they just issued this statement. Just as Sergeant Scholz sends out this tweet about his telephone conversation. Apropos of nothing, the G7 issues a statement in support of Ukraine.
Yeah.
So
Germans are backsliding again.
That's right. That's right. And it was at the initiative of the president of the Council of Ministers, Giorgia Meloni.
Never ceases to disappoint.
Never ceases to disappoint. The G7 leaders have adopted a statement in support of Kiev as the 1000th day of the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine approaches. We, the leaders of the Group of Seven, reaffirm our unwavering support for Ukraine as long as it takes. So they're going back to that formulation, as long as it takes. It wasn't as long as it's necessary, or Biden, I think, at one point said, as long as we can. Now it's back to as long as it takes. And it says, after 1,000 days of war, we recognize the immense suffering endured by the people of Ukraine despite these hardships. Ukrainians have demonstrated unmatched resilience and determination in defending their land, culture, and people. Russia remains the sole obstacle to just and lasting peace. The G7 confirms its commitment to imposing severe costs on Russia through sanctions, export controls, and other effective measures. We stand united with Ukraine.
See, George, but this tells me so many different things. I guess one sentence can stand as a paragraph. The G7, it's the wrong mechanism to deal with this issue. Okay. Right. One could make the claim, I would, most of the world's problems emanate from the G7, okay, right, and the histories of those colonial empires.
Right.
and it doesn't speak to security. Nobody ever talks about security.
No, no,
NATO caused this
that's
problem.
right.
NATO is the security problem
That's right.
here. See, so institutionally, they're ill-equipped.
They're
Even
very much ill-equipped because of the G7, six, no less than six, are NATO member states. The seventh is Japan, which is basically a satellite of NATO. But as you say, it's ill-equipped because they are the problem. You are the source of the problem.
they could never for a nanosecond have any kind of introspection. That
Right,
maybe they're the problem.
right,
They
right.
can't do that.
No, no. And here, oh, that's it. So that's the glorious the intervention of the G7. But clearly, they are not happy with what Sergeant Scholz did. Even though
Yeah.
according to the story, Scholz said, all I did is I repeated our talking points, every single talking point. But apparently, you're not even supposed to do that, or at least, or they don't believe that that's what Scholz did.
I try to exercise empathy from time to time, and I will do it right now. Sergeant Schultz, the upside is you won't have to deal with Annalena Baerbock anymore. I mean, I'm just on a very basic, visceral human level. I have to have some empathy.
Right.
George is, we've talked about this for the entire history of the Traffic Light Coalition, that all Annalena Baerbock wanted was to be foreign minister. She didn't care about really the policies or her own party, her electorate. No, she wanted to be the NATO front person, and
Right.
she achieved that. Okay,
Right.
and that will be her legacy.
Yes.
What the legacy of NATO will be, well, that we'll see. But she has connected her train to those institutions and that ideological outlook, and may she pay a very heavy price.
Right, exactly. But you never know how what the shape of the next coalition government will be because they're going to have to form a coalition, and they're going to keep out the Alternative for Deutschland, nothing to do with them. They're going to keep out the Sarah Wagenknecht's party, nothing to do with them. Obviously, the left, I don't know if the left party is going to get to 5%. Doesn't look like the Free Democrats are going to get to 5%, but maybe they always somehow manage.
It will be a squeaker if they
exactly 5.1%. That gets them some kind of a representation. So it's possible that Annalena Baerbock, or the Greens will be within this new coalition government. It's just that the Christian Democrats will be the senior party. So she may still. I mean, as you said, that's the job she wanted. She coveted that job when they did their coalition negotiations. The one unconditional demand of the Greens was, we get that gig, the foreign minister gig. She really wanted that. I think it wanted to remold the world in this feminist foreign policy. That's what this was the feminist foreign policy that she pursued.
This telephone call is so interesting on so many different levels because it seems like after this coalition's failure, and across the board, everyone, I mean, across the board, this has been a catastrophic government for Germany.
Yep.
Is the sovereignty gene, is this a last gasp for Schultz? Okay, because it sounds like he's talking about Germany as well. Okay.
Right.
Well, it's a little late in the game, a buck short and a day late to do that. Okay. And the cast has been set. I mean, the die has been set. I don't know how they get out of this. I mean, because they've taken so many of their own assets off the chessboard. They're just basically naked pawns now.
Right. Right. No, I agree. And I think that when Putin kind of made this offer to him, hey, well, if you want some natural gas, winter's coming, we can, we can turn the switch on and the gas is going to start going through Nord Stream 2. How about that? Scholz cannot do that now. He's so boxed in. Yet this might be his one last gamble to have any kind of a shot to do, not to be trounced in the election. Hey, I'm just reversing policy, but he's not going to do that. But that was, at least it's something that I think the Germans would probably support. Hey, we're gonna get cheap energy again, and therefore we're not going to be closing down Volkswagen plants, and we're not going to be deindustrializing. But Scholz is
Well,
unable to
and
do
there's
that.
also the reason why George is right. He can't do it because Donald Trump, with Grinnell, his ambassador to Germany in his first term, what did he rail about? Nord Stream 2 over and over and over again. And let's go a little bit forward in time. Then we have the Biden administration. They blow up the pipeline. So Trump's coming back into power. Do you think Schultz has the nerve, the guts, the foresight? They say, no, 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 this is against our national. With Trump saying America first all the time, it can only be America first. You can't be Germans can't be German first. Okay, no, okay. That's why this imperial thinking will prevail. Okay, I mean, you don't feel sorry for Schultz. I mean, you did this to yourself. You're pathetic.
Pathetic, absolutely pathetic. But you're right, because if we remember, it was one of those NATO meetings. Remember when Trump just kept ranting and ranting and ranting about Nord Stream, and everyone was silent, and he was going on and saying, "Yeah, we had."
And Mike Pompeo was like this.
Yeah, that's right, and they were all kind of very, very quiet, and he kept going back and back and back to this, is saying, "Hey, we're defending Germany, we're doing all this for Germany, and yet Germany is getting this cheap gas from Russia. So what are we defending? Why are we on the line to defend Germany against Russia when Germany is getting its cheap energy from Russia?" And they couldn't answer the question. But that's the way Trump was thinking, and that's exactly what he's thinking now. Hey, we're not going to be subsidizing an economic antagonist against us.
But don't you think that at that meeting they just say, okay, well, let's take a coffee break here, okay, and then you have Ursula or Merkel, Donald, can I just have a sec with you here? Go out in an annex. You're right. NATO is a grift, okay? It employs a lot of people, makes a lot of money for your defense company, okay? So, stop going on about this, okay? I mean, we like NATO here. We like being subservient to you. We buy your weapons. I mean, don't you understand how this thing works? Trump would have nothing to do with it, which from an intellectual point of view, he was absolutely right, okay? But then again, he didn't come from the swamp, okay? I mean, you people in Washington, they can talk to you until you're blue in the face about how important NATO is, and it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But they have it, they have it memorized. I mean, this is on the level of the Bible for these people.
That's right, exactly.
And Trump will just say, "I don't believe in your faith."
No, that's right, exactly. This is the transatlantic elite. They look after one another. They all kind of make a lot of money for doing very little work, and then they're kind of shuffling the deck. You go to this one, and Scholz will be looked after. He'll probably get some kind of a gig in the European Union.
It's Herman Marshall.
Exactly. He'll be okay. An absolute failure as a chancellor, but
they never hold it against you.
No, exactly. No one ever holds these things. It's like the British politician Neil Kinnock, who's now only famous for the fact that Biden plagiarized his speech. But he was failed completely. He was a Labour Party leader, lost a couple of elections. And then what does he do? Oh, they give him a gig at the European Union. And particularly as he had been against the European Union during his career. But hey, look, he's done his service. Have a nice, cushy European commissioner gig. And that's what they'll do. You failed completely as a chancellor. You lost an election badly. Yeah, have a commissioner gig.
Yeah, but that's how this neoliberal postmodernist nomenclatura works. This is where they take care of their own. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly.
No, but it's interesting. I mean, we'll see if this Schultz call has any kind of ricochet. Okay, because his government's coming to an end. Okay, the Trump administration is coming in. Everybody's looking over both sides of their shoulders right now, figuring out what to do. Which, when you're doing something like that, it means you're really insecure. You don't believe in what you're doing. You do it for power's sake, for your resume. I mean, it just shows how facile these people are in their, I mean, again, this is George, and I'll sound like a broken record. I mean, up until maybe the year 2000 or something, we could talk about the intellectual views of many different Europeans about Europe of the future. What kind of relationship with the
Right.
Soviet Union, later with Russia, how the United it's all vacuous now. It's just empty. It's like listening to the ocean in a seashell.
Yeah. It is quite remarkable. I mean, the total diminution of Europe that has taken place over the past decade or so. It's almost unbelievable. Remember 2002 when Schroeder and Chirac actively opposed American policy in Iraq. I mean, they said, hey, you can't use our territory in order to send men and weapons to Iraq. I mean, they went really far. Said, no, you can't. You're not going to use German territory in order to ship weapons to to your soldiers in Iraq. It's inconceivable now that any European leaders would stand up to the United States like that.
Yeah, well, look at the. I think Ireland protested, but the rest of European Union is directly or indirectly facilitating a genocide in Gaza, and not a peep from those people.
Not a peep, yeah. It's absolutely.
All right, we'll see where Sergeant Schultz call goes. I think there's something in the air here. I think I want to see how people are going to react to it. But as I've said for a long time now, if you got your fingerprints on the Ukraine project, you're going to live to regret it. I think I'm right. All right, everybody, this is part of our Sunday night wrap, and this is Peter and George. We're on local, so please go to thegaggle.locals.com. Tomorrow we have live stream, right?
Exactly. Live stream, 10 a.m. Eastern time. Please join us. Come with questions and suggestions, opinions. Everything is welcome, and we like as many questions as possible because we enjoy addressing people's concerns. So please, homework assignment. Think of good questions by 10 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow, and then on Tuesday I have my solo at 3 p.m. Eastern time. In the meantime, for once, Buddy has made an appearance, not with any kind of approval. He's sort of expressing
He wants ice.
He wants ice, but he's a little like the G7. The G7 suddenly issued a statement. So Buddy's issuing a statement. It's unacceptable, whatever it is. It's absolutely just unacceptable. And the tip jar, unacceptable. So if you have a few bob, in your pocket, behind the sofa cushions, anywhere, somewhere where you haven't looked, we would be most appreciative. So we're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, the more we can improve on the technology, and above all, Buddy will be in a better mood. Very, very hard in this time of the year. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye-bye.